Hello YouTube world, my name is Nicholas Montez and you're watching my YouTube channel, Nicholas Montez. Welcome back to my YouTube channel today, everybody. I'm so excited to have you back here together again. I know that that's not the formulaic intro, but whatever. Today we're so this past Wednesday the finale of What If finally came out, and it's gotten me hyped, so it's finally time to stop and rank all 9 episodes of What If finally. From the worst to the best, let's get started. Okay, so, when I first saw this episode and then I ended it, I completely thought, like, this was, like, the worst episode and probably the worst thing that the MCU has ever made for Phase 4. Just of all the content that they made, it's the least interesting concept that I want for a What If episode, and it's just not really what I wanted. Now, on the positives, it was, of course, very cool to hear all these familiar voice actors again. Hearing Chris Hemsworth as Thor was pretty fun. Hearing Natalie Portman and Kat Dennings as Darcy Lewis and Jane Foster and Darcy again, it was fun. Just hearing the whole cast of Thor coming back, some new people in the mix with Captain Marvel, Maria Hill, Phil Coulson, Frank Grillo as Rumlow. So there were some familiar faces. There was definitely a lot of great cameos from all these different people, like Scourge, some of the Skrulls, some of the Guardians of the Galaxy like Nebula and Drax. You also get Yondu at one point, you get Mantis, you get Korg, you get the Grandmaster. You basically get everybody of all the realms. And I thought that was a pretty cool thing to do with this episode. And then also, I think that another thing that I really liked about this episode is the fight between Thor and Captain Marvel, where you basically get these two powerful Avengers finally battling it out. And it was pretty awesome, where they get to go from different places, and the way the animation is when Captain Marvel crashes into something, it just looks pretty cool. And then of course the cliffhanger at the end with Ultron appearing with his robots and stuff, that was of course great. As you got excited for the next episode. But just in general, this wasn't really an episode that I felt like worked. The scenario didn't really work, and I wish they could have dived into some things, like how is Nebula here, how is Drax here, but maybe it's true that just because the universe is, everything changes, maybe the past events happened differently. So maybe all the universes are totally, entirely different. So, but that's just me. But overall, this is my least favorite episode, so that's why it's in last place. Now, this was an episode that, obviously, when I first thought of the scenario of Killmonger, like, teaming up with Tony Stark and rescuing him, it just felt so weird to take the story of Black Panther, Killmonger's motivation, and put it in the film of Black Panther. It just felt so, I mean, to put his plot in Black Panther and put it in the first Iron Man movie. Like, it just felt so weird. And like there's people that are trusting him, like T'Challa's dad is like trusting him with all these things, and he actually makes him Black Panther. He trusts him that he can help us defeat these Iron Man robots that are invading Wakanda. And it's like there's things in this episode that there's characters there's characters that are doing things in this episode that they probably shouldn't be doing, and they're trusting characters they probably shouldn't be trusting, and that was a big issue for me. Also, they literally killed T'Challa, Iron Man, well, Tony Stark, and Rhodey all in this episode. Like, first let Tony Stark rest, because he's been killed too many times. He never gets justice. Black Panther got killed, and we thought he got killed in the zombies episode. And then Rhodey actually gets killed, which that's something I never really thought we would actually see. But it never really made sense of why he did get killed. But then it also just kind of ruins the timeline, because if Shuri is young at this time, then T'Challa should be young at this time too, and the dad should look a little bit younger than he used to in Civil War. So overall, I thought this was an enjoyable episode. It was kind of cool to see some of the past characters like Happy again, Pepper again, Tony Stark again. Finally, after seeing him as a zombie and getting killed by Hank Pym in the episode 3, I thought it was cool seeing him in this episode finally, and being voiced by the guy that voiced him in Avengers Assemble. So there were familiar faces I did like seeing, and some familiar voices I did like hearing. But overall, this is just a kind of disappointing episode. Okay, now you're gonna probably hate on me down in the comment section because everybody is raving about this episode. Now, I understand. Like, I honestly, this was probably the episode I was most excited for. Just because I, of course, love what the MCU has done with their characters. I personally love what they're doing with everything. On the positives, it really does a great job of coming back to the Doctor Strange world, where you get the Benedict Cumberbatch coming back, you get Wong coming back, you get the Ancient One coming back. It's, of course, really cool to hear their voices, and it's really cool to hear Rachel McAdams as Christine Palmer again. But I think the big problem here is that, first off, as this is an episode that basically does the turnaround of Doctor Strange not losing his hands but his heart, they don't explore it. They literally just go through it, and then they just spend the entire episode of Doctor Strange trying to bring him back. Because in the Doctor Strange film, he never really, I have to say, he never really wanted to use magic to bring back to heal his hands. I'm not even sure if I remember that. Maybe he did, but I don't know. But in this film, I mean, this episode, I just didn't really like how he kept using the time stone to bring her back, but he couldn't, and then he does all these other stuff, which was cool, where we got to see some different creatures of the MCU come into play. What else? And then also Christine Palmer, if you know about me, she's not really one of the most popular love interests of the MCU, and they didn't really have the closest relationship in Doctor Strange movie, and they were more of friends, but had a cool relationship together. But I wouldn't really call them lovers. I don't know. But that's my thoughts on this episode once again. Now, this was an episode that I was kind of excited for. Now, on the positives, there's definitely some cool ways in the way they did this story. And because this episode takes place during the events of Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, and Thor, certain characters are at different points in time of the event. So, because Nick Fury was technically meant for the Iron Man 2 timeline, but Iron Man died, so now he's at the Thor base, trying to figure out where is the power source for this hammer. And I thought it was pretty cool in the way they did that. And then Black Widow is at the Incredible Hulk base. And so they find different ways to put different characters into the universe that I thought was pretty cool. And then also the jokes about Phil Coulson, raving about Thor's hair. I thought that was also pretty funny. And then Hawkeye gets into it a little bit at times. So I thought that stuff was really nice. And then also, here's where the issues come in. Or no, actually, one more good thing before we talk about it. And then also the cliffhanger at the end where Nick Fury basically looks like Captain America, and then Captain Marvel's right behind him. That scene was awesome because it's like you could like have your own definition of what could this new Avengers team be. I would pick War Machine, Janet Van Dyne's Wasp, Red Hulk, possibly Thor because he could come back by Odin's Tear. There's a lot of great things like they could do with that end credit, with that little cliffhanger at the end. But here's where the problems come in, and it's that scene where they find out who the killer is, which is Hank Pym in this yellow jacket Ant-Man suit. And I just feel like it was so disappointing because when he is introduced, you don't really get anything. Granted, he does kill all the Avengers, but he can't even kill Nick Fury, and he can't even kill Loki. And when you have a scene like that, it just makes the character disappointing. But it is kind of cool to hear Michael Douglas's voice, and then it just transforms into a whole different scenario of what if Hope Van Dyne was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and was killed by the Winter Soldier, which technically, if you remember back in the Winter Soldier movie, Odessa, Ukraine is the same place Black Widow fought and got shot in the stomach by the Winter Soldier. So it's obvious that she got killed by the Winter Soldier. But overall, it was kind of disappointing in the way the story played out, but I still thought it was a very enjoyable episode. Now, Zombies episode, I honestly thought that, I didn't really know how this episode was going to play out. Until I heard the theory about that it was going to take place between Ant-Man and the Wasp and Avengers Infinity War. And when I first heard about that, I was like, yeah, it definitely makes sense because the quantum realm can cause you to get viruses in your head and can corrupt your brain. So it makes sense in light of what's happening. So I thought that was a cool aspect of the show, of the episode. And it just makes it for a very entertaining, enjoyable episode with great fan service, where almost every moment it's action-packed, but it still finds ways to give certain characters moments, new characters that get new types of arcs, characters that get new relationships, characters that you never really thought you would see together actually come together, and I thought it was very cool the way they did it. Scott Lang's talking head was of course very funny. I love him, though I don't understand the whole concept of it, of how he's actually living. Hulk finally hulking out as he did in Infinity War, in the real version of Infinity War, not this one. Hearing T'Challa's voice again as as the real version of T'Challa. The message of, in my culture, death is not the end. They are still with us. They are still with us as long as we do not forget them. That's a beautiful message. It's a great send-off to Chadwick Boseman. Love you, man. And I just really like this episode, and I really enjoyed it. Now, this was an episode that, honestly, when I first saw it, I was like, this is exactly what I want. But that's kind of the key thing about this episode, is that the Captain America stuff is a little bit too safe. And that you know what to expect from the series. You know what to expect from the content that we get from Captain America. But I thought that the way they did it was actually pretty well done. When they introduced the whole Tesseract mission, I thought that was pretty cool. Where it kind of experimented on some cool animation styles with explosions and stuff. I thought that was really cool. And kind of doing the rescue mission of the Howling Commandos and all the 107th mission, I thought that was pretty cool too. Steve Rogers actually kind of getting into an early Iron Man technology suit, I thought that was really cool. And just seeing the Captain America First Avenger movie differently, but with Peggy Carter, but some events are changed, it questions you, and it makes you excited for the next scenario that comes first. And it's like you want to see what happens next in this exact universe. And What we got in episode 9, I was like, this is cool. So I thought this was a very good episode. I don't really remember much of it, but if you want to go watch my review for it, definitely go do that, because it's a banger. Now this was an episode much like the Killmonger episode and the Zombies episode and the Thor episode. This was one of the episodes that I was just not looking forward to, because how can you make T'Challa, the Black Panther, into one of the most least likable characters into a Star-Lord? That just does not make any sense to me. But I think what we got, I mean, and still to this day, I still understand why they decided to choose T'Challa, keep him, and just become a Avenger. I still don't get that. But I think what we got for this type of little experiment episode, I thought it worked. Where T'Challa, because T'Challa is so noble, he changes a bunch of things throughout the universe. Such as Thanos, where he basically makes Thanos a good guy, and he's actually part of the squad. And Thanos actually, throughout the mission, he actually does have like a little bit of a character arc and a bit of he actually becomes the hero of the story. You have Nebula, which becomes blonde. You have Drax, that's now a bartender because his family got saved by the Kree invasion that happened on his home world. And then you have the Black Order working for the Collector that are now against Thanos, and the Collector is now using all these weapons from familiar MCU films, like the knife from Malekith from Thor: The Dark World, Hela's horns. He has Thor's and Cap's shield. All these familiar artifacts of the MCU that was just really combined. And as this episode is not really focused on action, the action in this episode is actually pretty good, and it continues the cool animation style throughout it. So overall, I thought that this episode was great, and it also gave a very respectful payment to the respect of Chadwick Boseman as he passed away last year. So very cool episode, and I love this episode, and I hope T'Challa as Star-Lord comes back in a future project or something. Now this episode gave me exactly what I wanted. Where it basically gave me much like the Captain Carter episode, this episode kind of gives you what to expect. Because we already, from all the shots in the trailers, we know that all these heroes were going to team up at some point. We know that all these characters there was going to be something in some way for all these characters to team up to save the multiverse. And I thought it was a cool experiment where you basically just they meet up to all these different universes, and it's like Captain Carter is in the Winter Soldier movie, T'Challa is fighting Ego on Earth. You go to the Gamora universe, which is a little bit confusing, but I wanted to see more of that. You go to the Killmonger universe, where Shuri and Pepper and the Dora Milaje are about to get him, but he's not there. And then Thor is fighting the Ultron bots. And I also thought it was just a great way to conclude some of the characters' arcs. Like Captain Carter finally gets to see Steve again in the Hydra Buster suit. Well, she sees the Hydra Buster, but it's not confirmed of who's inside. But we can tell that it's Steve, since that's the guy that had it in the war in that universe. And it also just gives a great arc for the Black Widow of the Ultron universe, where she can't go back because her whole universe is destroyed. So now she needs to go to a new universe where they lost her widow, and she goes to the world of episode 3. And I thought that was a pretty cool way to do her character. And I thought that was cool. So that's a pretty cool episode. So I just thought it was a satisfying conclusion to the show, but unfortunately it's not my favorite episode of the series. Now this episode was absolutely insane, because when I first thought of the What If Ultron Won scenario, I was like, this just feels, because Ultron didn't really seem that threatening in Age of Ultron, I mean, sure, he did lift like two like crumbs of Sokovia, but like that wasn't really big. And then they did destroy it, and then it's like, but if you want to do something big, why not give him the stones and just have him destroy and go from destroying the Guardians of the Galaxy, from going to Sakaar to the Sovereign to the Xandar to destroying the whole universe. And that was something I was not expecting. It's definitely insane. There's a lot of things that I was not expecting in this episode. I was not expecting Ultron to literally slice Thanos in half. And it's like, it's something about this episode that makes me, because when Thanos appears and then he gets sliced, because this is in Vision's body, it's like, he deserves it, because Thanos killed him. And it's like, nope, you're not getting the stone, you're getting killed now. Like, die. And I thought it was crazy. And it, because of what Ultron did, it kind of sets up these two character arcs for Hawkeye and Black Widow, where Hawkeye has his meaning to live is just flatlining, and he doesn't want to live. He's tired of fighting. He doesn't want to fight anymore. And I thought that was a cool little character arc. And then it also gives nice ways to get callbacks to the other films. It gives a callback to Red Guardian's shield. It gives callbacks to the other people that have lost their arms in the MCU. And then it also just gives callback to the Endgame scene where Black Widow sacrifices herself. Except this time, this is Hawkeye sacrificing himself to save Black Widow. And then also the fight between Ultron and the Watcher is, of course, insane. And then the anticipation for the episode 9 was insane. So this episode did everything I wanted, and also the action was cool with Hawkeye and the arrows and stuff. And I kind of wish they did that in the movies. But so this was an episode that I was like, yes, I love this episode. This was one of the best episodes of What If there ever has been. I love it. So that's my ranking of all 9 episodes of What If. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My Instagram is Marvel6. My TikTok name is MarvelFan. If you guys don't understand those names, head to my about section so you can follow me on all social medias. I'm also on Letterboxd. It's the same name as Instagram. _6_, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.